What is today Latin America was once many native nations. Spain, Portugal, France, England, the Dutch, and Danish invaded. They carried out genocide after genocide and enslaved both natives and Africans. After independence, most new governments were still white-dominated, with more genocides against natives in nations like Argentina, Brazil, and Chile. European powers hold on to some territories even today and kept invading to take their colonies back. The United States invaded too, overthrowing or trying to overthrow over 60 governments, the last attempt in the year 2020 against Venezuela. The U.S. also took half of Mexico's land and a tenth of its people, then Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. There's a long history of many Americans fearing and hating Latinos. Latin America's image and reality is often one of instability, poverty, drug cartels, revolutions, corruption, and refugees. But it did not have to be this way. Latin America could remain all or mostly native nations. I spoke about this in detail in the previous series, What If Natives Won? Poverty, white domination, and foreign invasions could have been stopped, prevented, or limited. The U.S. could have been more Latino culturally, with higher numbers of Latinos. The U.S. could have been less racist, less dominating, or the U.S. could be defeated. Some Latin American nations could even become regional or world powers. There is a huge lack of alternate history about Latin America and Latinos. So much alternate history is Europe-centered, mostly because so much history and history teaching is Europe-centered. This series is dedicated to scenarios, points of departure, and possibilities of Latin American victory within Latin America and a more Latino, less racist American society. My name is Carroll. I'm Associate Professor of History at Northern Virginia Community College. I've written mostly about wars, veterans, human rights, and genocide. My next history book will be Genocide Denial in America, about the 7 genocides against indigenous people that took place in the U.S. that most people were never taught about, don't know, or deny. I've also written some science fiction, mostly alternate history. One story, Timely Saviors, appeared in a short story collection, The Witness Paradox. I'm also, together with Rob Schmidt of Bluecorn Comics, editing and putting out a short story alternate history collection, What If Natives Won? I've also written a sci-fi alternate history book, The Man in Black, the first of a series. Many have the impression Spanish conquest of Latin America was quick. It actually took decades at the shortest point, with the Aztecs. More often, Spanish invaders had to invade, destroy, or even commit genocide for generations, as they did with the Tainos on Hispaniola. For the Mayas, Spanish conquest took 170 years. Part of the reason was that the Mayas were not one nation, kingdom, or people, but dozens. The one Mayan nation that took the longest to conquer were the Tzeltal. They held off Spanish invaders until 1712, over 200 years since Columbus first slaughtered Tainos by the millions. A century later, Mayas fought again versus Spaniards during the War for Independence, and then versus the new nation of Mexico. The Caste War was fought for over 60 years and almost succeeded due to British weapons. Mayas could have become their own nation, as I described in another video. The British had a similar arms alliance with the Mosquito Nation also in the 19th century. It's very easy to imagine the British providing similar arms, again like I described in an earlier video. Success in Central America likely means other uprisings happened sooner. Upper and Lower Peru and Gran Colombia's independence happened before Napoleon's invasion of Spain and affects Spain's alliances with England or Napoleon. The independence movement will be native-led instead of Criollo, white European-led. Less elite-dominated is less unequal. A victorious native-led independence movement means no or less caudillos in Latin America. It might even mean we don't refer to it today as Latin America. Instead, it is Native America or Indo America, with a separate term for the Caribbean and Brazil, Afro-America. It's possible and even likely that Native or Indo America is isolated from Spain or even other European nations as Haiti was after its slave revolutions. The main difference being there will be no crippling reparations as France forced Haiti to pay. Native nations in South America or Mexico and Central America are connected by land. They can't be effectively blockaded, not easily. Native nations can trade with each other. There's also enough skilled labor: blacksmiths, gunsmiths, road builders, home and building builders, technicians, and merchants among natives and mestizos. There may be some shortages of medical personnel and research scientists and inventors. Native or Indo America will also have far less capitalism. Instead, we would see far more barter trade, a system of mita obligations as under the Incas and Mayas. Quite a few intellectuals, from Thomas More to Eduardo Galeano, argued that early states like the Inca were early versions of socialism. Emerging native socialist states will also influence the socialist movements of Europe. European socialists will ally with native ones and try to model themselves on them also. Mayas also have their own hierarchy of priests and traditional beliefs. There will be less or even no Catholic hierarchy in the area, the same as happened during the caste wars in our own time in the 1840s and 60s. A less rigid remaining Catholic Church in the area will have to respond more to the needs of workers and natives, and there will be less ties to elites. This is the end of the third video. I look forward to your comments and questions and will answer as soon as I can. Please repost freely, like, quote, and comment. This has been Latin American Victory. Next time we will discuss what if Spaniards are driven out of Peru.